Welcome back. At this point, you know a lot about the spreadsheet. You know the different worksheets, how they work, how to use them, how to input data, and track and analyze your expenses. You know how to set up your budget, all of that. In this video, I'm just going to give you a few tips on getting started. You know what to do, but getting started may cause a few other challenges that you aren't aware of. So first of all, before I get into a few of those things, just a few general tips for using this. Try to avoid things such as dragging and dropping. So if you notice, I come over here, I can drag and drop the cell, and that may be tempting. Let's say I put in insurance and I realize I don't want that at the top. I'd rather drag and drop it. Well, you might think that's a great idea. Let's say I do that, but it's going to mess things up. So number one, you have errors here and here. The formatting gets messed up. The reason for that is because the formatting, the formulas, everything is all referencing these cells. So even though it seems like you can enter data here and there's nothing going on, they're all being referenced, and when you drag and drop a cell, it messes up the formulas. So I'm going to undo that. For obvious reasons, as I just showed you, I would recommend not doing that. Really, all you need to do with this is enter your data and delete it. So enter that, enter them out here if you'd like, and you're welcome to delete out the data. That's not going to affect anything, but if you don't want to mess up the formulas or the conditional formatting, I would recommend simply entering and deleting data, not dragging and dropping or anything like that. Keyboard shortcuts, be careful with if you know them. If you do know them, chances are you know how to use them and what to avoid. If you don't know them, that's fine. You don't need them. I really designed this spreadsheet so that you can enter data and delete it out, and it's that simple to use. So with that being said, let's talk about getting started. So you create your budget. Okay, let's say you input all of your data here. You have your expense categories, you know your revenue, calculates your savings, you're set, you're ready to start using it. Let's say it's January 2021. Here's one issue you might come up against. So remember I said in the balance sheet video that the sum of all your account balances will equal your bank account balance. Well, that's true if your bank account balance was zero when you started using the spreadsheet, because any money that you make will go into your bank account balance and will be tracked in here. If there's already money in your bank account before you start using this, then of course it's not going to be calculated in here. But you might want it to be, right? What if you actually want this to reflect your bank account balance? Well, you can do that, and here's how. So let's say that you have $5,000 in your bank account as of the very end of 2020, and in January you start using this. Well, what you would do is you'd pick essentially the last day of the previous year. So since we're working in 2021, we'd use December 31st, 2020, enter category 1 for revenue. So let's say your bank account balance is $5,000, and you can just put initial entry. You don't have to, that's optional. And what this is going to do is it's going to make your balance sheet equal your bank account balance. So again, the idea is whatever your bank account balance is when you start using this, take that number, put it in here as an entry on the last day of the previous year. Why does that matter? Well, it's not going to affect your analysis. So if you come over here and look in December, it's not pulling that data. So even though you did a transaction in December, it's not going to mess up your analysis because it was of the previous year. Because over here, the spreadsheet knows you're working in 2021, and since you did an entry in 2020, that's basically an initial setup entry, if you will. So that's going to allow your bank account balance to match your balance sheet balance, essentially. And then if you want, you can come over here and do some savings allocation and split it out into other accounts. That's up to you, but you can do that if you want to. And then, so let's say you use it for all of 2021. At the end of the year, great, you've got all your data, it's all in here. But then it's January 2022. So now what do? Because if you just start entering transactions in 2022, the summary is going to still be pulling in 2021 data if you don't change this year. So number one, I recommend coming over and immediately changing this to 2022. When you're ready to roll over to the next month, that's the first thing you do. So 2022, you're going to switch that. And now none of your 2021 data will be calculated. So it's up to you. You can either leave it in here. It's not going to affect the summary, right? Because the year has changed. But if it's easier, you can just delete it out. It's up to you. You can save this as 2021 budget and then resave it as 2022. Delete out all your data. That's fine. Again, if you want to do a yearly comparison, you can do that separately, but really this is built to work on a 12-month period. So anyway, now that you have done that, you're set to work for 2022. But again, the balance sheet, what are you going to do about that? Because you want the balances of these accounts to roll over to the next year. Because let's say you have $5,000 in your bank account doesn't just go to zero at the beginning of the next year. So what do? It's a very similar process. So I'll just give you an example. Let's say you have gifts, I'll make it easy, and insurance, both prepaid, and I'm going to give them round numbers. Whoops. And then let's come over to savings allocation and actually do that. We'll say this is 21. The reason why I'm doing this is, so let's just pretend that this is the end of the year and these are my final balance sheet balances or account balances at the end of the year. I'm deleting out all my data, and so if I delete out this, unfortunately, you're going to lose all of your data here. So what I would recommend doing is either taking a screenshot or writing this down. So you have 4,000 in savings, 5,000 in gifts, or 500 in gifts, and 500 in insurance. So it's going to be similar. You're now working in 2022. So what you're going to do is you're going to delete out all of your transactions and savings allocation data. You don't need that anymore. The only thing you want to roll over to the next year is your account balances and the balance sheet. So again, we know these balances. So first you're going to do an entry for 5,000 in transactions. Okay, so that's, again, pretending we've been using this for the whole year for 2021. We're now trying to roll it over to 2022, and our final bank account balance is $5,000. So what you do is you're going to do another initial entry, just as if you were starting from scratch, for 5,000. This time it's going to be 2021. So again, I'm not going to redo this entry, but you delete all this out, and then you'd enter in category 1, 5,000 for the last day of the previous year, since we're in 2022 now. And this is going to be your initial entry. So this is to set your bank account balance, and then, well, we know 500 and 500 for each of those. So then you'd come over, and I will redo these just because. Last day of the previous year, category 2 and 3 for 500, 500. So again, these are your initial entries, if I can spell, or setup entries, whatever you want to say. This isn't you using it on a daily basis. This is just you setting it up for the next year. So again, to get started and set it up, you would do an initial entry for, you're going to call it revenue basically, but it's for your bank account balance to get it set up to where it's current, and then you can start using it. And at the end of the year, when you're ready to roll it over to the next year, you take your bank account balance, you do an initial entry, just as we did, to set it up, and then you can also go ahead and put in just total, whatever the account balances were, just put in one entry for the total account balance for each account. And now it's set up. So you'll see the balance sheet for 2022 is just as we left it in 2021, except now, you would have much less data because you deleted out the previous year's entries and you can start using it for the next year. So I know that was a bit long. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but that was the idea. That's actually why this is here, so that when you roll it over to the next year, you can still do your initial entries and it's not going to affect the summary at all. Notice none of that data actually pulls into here because it's past data really to set it up. So that's pretty much all I have for you. There's going to be one more final video titled Final Thoughts that's going to give you a little bit more advanced Excel information. So let's say you want to use this for yourself and you want to change a few things around. Again, you're totally welcome to do it, whatever it works best for you. So I'll teach you a few things that you may need to know if you want to play around with it that way. But other than that, you're ready to get started. So enjoy. I hope the spreadsheet really helps you and gives you just a good method to track your expenses. And yeah, enjoy. And if you're interested, feel free to check out the next video as well, which will be, as I said, Final Thoughts.